Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode it's Ford Friday, so we're having the Ford Ka. Welcome back, and if you're new to Quartzlight, we're here on YouTube looking at car brochures from the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that. So if you're a car enthusiast or indeed a car brochure enthusiast, please consider subscribing. Today it's Ford Friday. Every Friday we look at a Ford. Today it's the turn of the Ford Ka. How do you pronounce that? There's lots of different ways, and you know every person you speak to pronounces it differently. I know originally all the journalists used to call it the Ford Car, but maybe that just became too confusing. Some people call it the Ford Ka. I think Ford at one point, well, it wasn't when it was launched, at one point said the official way to say it was the Ford Ka. Sounds weird. I'll probably say it every different way during this brochure review video, and to be honest with you, the name is one of the things that actually put me off these cars. But let's have a look at today's brochure. So this particular brochure is a first generation Ka, as I'm sure you've recognised, and the date of this particular brochure is 1997. The Ford Ka first launched in 1996 and it ran till 2008 in this first generation. Guys, let's have a look at the brochure now. So this particular brochure is a very nice one. It's in very good condition. It's as new really. And these sort of smaller cars, you always find it at this time, these sort of bright colours and not too much detail. If we remember looking at some of the older brochures, real technical detail, we really don't have that here. But anyway, let's open the brochure and see what we can find inside. So we open the brochure up. It's a bit of a reflective front cover. It's not the best front cover actually, but it does give you some little bits of ideas of the designers, which we'll have a look at there, which is quite interesting. And our first picture, which isn't the best, but we'll certainly zoom in on that one. So here we have some of the designers for the car, and like I say, it's super reflective, these first few pages at least, so you can even see the lights from the camera, reflection of me to a certain degree, very reflective. I tried to reduce that as much as I can, but it tells us here chief designer Chris Clements, director at Advanced Design Claude LeBeau, and the vice president Ford Small Medium Vehicle Centre Richard Parry Jones, and then another three who've been involved in this: Scott Strong, exterior design; Shireen Rappaport, apologies for the terrible pronunciation of that, interior colour and trim; and Mark Adams, interior design manager. And then, like I say, on the other page we've got a bit of a glimpse, but there are better images to come, so we'll turn the page and have a look at those. As you can see, the brochure does get better after that dull first page, a lot more colourful. We all like a bit of colour, and certainly the camera likes a bit of colour on there as well. Interesting colours at this time, and there is a nice little colour chart at the end, which is nice to see in the brochure. But we know that this particular colour, which I think was probably the best colour for the Ford Ka at the time, this is called Belladonna, and I think this is just a flat radiant red. In fact, the Belladonna, although it looks a nice metallic, that's just a flat colour. And weirdly, the flat colours just seem to be available on the base models, the Ford Ka. And there was also the Ford Ka 2 and the Ford Ka 3. But the base models just seem to have the solid colours, and like I say, for this particular car, I think the solid colours are the nicest colours. But anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We'll move on to the next page. We then move on to the interior, and I quite like the interior of these little cars actually, how they swooped around there. They were a little bit more interesting, I think, and overall I do actually like the design of these as well. Interesting little bit of a caption on the top there. It says functionality of design adds the driving experience. Every switch, every button easily reached, every dial and display easily read. Nothing designed for mere effect. The simple thing done well. If we zoom in, we get this very unusual radio design. That's a little bit of a weird feature, and it does actually mention that at the bottom here. So it says that's the 600 radio CD. Above left, okay, is standard on the car or K3, so that must be that, above left. So that's a K3, I guess, and available as an option on the K and K2. The 500 radio cassette above right, which is that little guy. Is standard on the K2, while the 1000 radio cassette main picture is standard on the K. Option passenger airbag shown. I actually think again the base model had the nicest looking radio, to be honest. We turn the next page and we get a look at the interior and some little captions, so we'll zoom in on those. So we'll get this sort of like a see-through roof style design image, so we can have a look at the seats, telling us that those rear head restraints are standard on the K2 and K3. Then we get a little bit of text. What does it say here? The balance of form and colour, understatement, no gliding of the lily, design harmony. Kind of weird. Then we get this particular shot which shows a better sort of idea of those seats, which look quite nice, and how that designed that dashboard in. Again, I like the design of the interior. I'm just not keen on some of these sorts of phrases within the brochure which really detract from the car, if anything, but I guess that's what you get when you ask the designers for key little words to put in a brochure. Then we get these like design touches, which the camera's kind of like struggling to pick up. Now that's a little bit better. So little places to store bits and pieces, although extremely small little spaces. Another look at them seats, which again, they don't look bad at all for what the car is. And another little bit of a quote from one of the designers: harmony was important on the inside, busyness was out, and the balance of form and colour became our signature. Not too keen on these little quotes, I have to say. What does it say about the seats? It says adjustable contoured fabric seating combines the virtue of lumbar support with comfort. Then we get to this page which is entitled Drive, talking about driving the car, and actually the handling was probably one of the best aspects of this little car. Right from the start, it had a good sort of rapport with journalists who really liked the handling of these cars. I think the main drawback was the engine that they put in there, that 1300, which was quite antiquated by the time, so it's a shame that you use such an old engine in it. Some of the captions again there, if you're interested: small, agile, easy, precise steering, crisp acceleration, big car stability, clear intent, classic execution. So that one makes a little bit more sense. And we have a little bit of a look at that sort of suspension. The braking system features asbestos-free pads to give a long life to both linings and disc faces. And a little bit of a chip picture there. So let's have a look at that. Of course, now we're getting like a bit more computerized. As finally the camera catches up with us, the EECV module is the most powerful engine management system available with Ford cars. And then finally we get this little bit of an image looking through a Ford car rear view door mirror to another Ford car. And if you notice at this stage, all the bumpers were black on these early ones. Apparently something in the treatment or making process of them bumpers made it impossible for them to paint, otherwise it would just all peel off the paint. I think there was a lot of interest in having coloured bumpers, and they did do coloured bumpers or body coloured or colour coded bumpers, whatever you want to call them, later on, and they had to change the process for them bumpers to allow that to happen. But very interesting, and just sticking with them bumpers for a moment, very interesting how they're such big bumpers and they stretch right round. Apparently they did that just to make it easier to repair. Being a city car, it was expected to get lots of little scrapes and scratches on there, I think. And that nicely leads on to the next page, which is actually called Protect, where it's sort of talking about protection on the car, and another look at those big bumpers that wrap round and right into the wheel arches there as well. Overall, I think it was quite a good exterior design, showing here being these wheel trims, although there is alloy wheels, which we'll have a look at later on. Showing these audio systems where this features a removable front panel for security. Remember, all the radios at one time always had them removable panels, and then you had to carry this silly panel around with you all over. But nevertheless, it's now talking about front and side impacts. Of course, the worry with small cars is always how safe they are. And there it says the car has been extensively tested across a wide range of climatic conditions. Now, if you notice this brochure, it doesn't really follow the normal process of a Ford brochure. It doesn't have a little bit of an introduction, then lead on to the three models, in this case the Ka, Ka2, Ka3. Just keeps talking about the Ford Ka. But this picture is actually showing the top of the range Ford Ka3. I think this colour was called Electric Current, the metallic red. Again, we'll look at the colours later on. Very unusual wheels, these alloy wheels. I've never seen these alloy wheels before, I must admit, but by far my favourite. If we zoom in on them alloy wheels, they are very unusual, and I really do like them. Little Ka badge in the centre and the Ford logo to one side. They really do look really something special, and it'd be worth getting that top of the range one just for those alloy wheels. But if you notice, we've still got these black bumpers as we've talked about earlier. We've got black door handles and black door mirrors by the looks of it. Well, they almost look a little bit glossy black on them door mirrors on this particular one. Overall design, like I say, I think overall it was an interesting design. At the top we've got various different little images in various different scenes, but no real picture showing anything as interesting as those alloy wheels. Then we get this page, which is just entitled Style, but read here optionals or accessories above and beyond, and more examples of unusual alloy wheels you could get. There's this unusual alloy wheel, which is interesting. I don't think any as nice as that one shown on that Ka3, but certainly a little interesting alloy wheels on that one, and indeed a different alloy wheel. So lots of little accessories you could get. I think it's also telling us that this sunroof is also one of those accessories as well. But you could always get Ford branded cell phones, or something to put your CDs in, a little bit of a roof spoiler, and at the end here we've got like leather trim, so leather steering wheel, leather gear knob by the looks of it. Usual sort of roof racks and the options to, in this case, carry a bike. And I always thought it was a little bit unusual carrying your bike in this position. You have to certainly be careful of not driving into your garage, for example. And then at the bottom here, this sort of like storage bin. Then we get this rather random little picture of this Ford Ka. I'm kind of getting fed up of calling it the Ford Ka. I think Ford KA may sound a little bit nicer. Like I say, when they first came out, all the journalists called them the Ford Car, but I guess that became too confusing. On the other page, the specification page for this Ford KA. Let's call it the KA now, just to switch things up a little bit. Starts by showing it's the 1.3 because they're all the 1.3, and like I said, it was disappointing it had that very old 1.3 in there, but it shows the different curb weights. When you look at the curb weights, it's amazing. A few options can increase your curb weight, isn't it? And then you start thinking, do you want the base model? Exterior dimension, which are hard to show on camera. Insurance groupings, of course it won't be the same today, but it looks like insurance group 2. And this engine data for this ancient engine. It's a 1299cc, a 4-cylinder inline, fuel injected, but like I say, it was quite an old-fashioned engine by this stage, and lots of criticisms about this LD engine. I wish they put something a bit nicer in. Possibly the Z-Tech engine would have been quite nice if they threw that in there, but I think they was worried about it being better than the Fiesta. Performance, maximum speed 96, which is quite respectable. 0 to 16 14.3, which really isn't. That's a little bit on the slow side, isn't it? And then a continuation of specifications. Black square means it's got it. So we've got the 3 models here: the KA, the KA2, KA3. Kind of like fed up of saying Ka. Sounds horrendous, doesn't it? So I've started calling it the KA. Basically showing you what has on each one. Obviously all models have got all these as shown. I'm not going to talk through it all, but certainly you can pause the screen if you are interested in anything in particular. It then moves on to exterior features. So there is a little bit of difference. It looks like the only one with the alloy wheel is that 3 model. And metallic paint, it looks like it's only available on the 2 and the 3, although when we look at the colours, I think the best colours were the flat colours anyway, so another reason to get that base model, I guess. Just them nice alloy wheels I liked on the 3 model. And then external functionality, so central locking not available on the base model. And interior features, again, I think that base model had the nicest looking radio cassette, but I'm not really a huge musicophile, so I'll probably still be quite happy with that base one just for the nicer look of the radio. And a few more features. A few more of those interior features for the 3 models. First 2 are very similar, aren't they? Just a few features missing from the base model. Interestingly though, you get air conditioning on the top of the range model, which is unusual for such a small base car. And interesting, you even get electric front windows on the top 2 models as well. I guess I'm not used to talking about more modern cars, because once upon a time that was just for the best of the best, really, wasn't it? And then options, so it's telling you can get your air conditioning as an option even on the base model if you really want it. And of course you can option up your stereo radio cassette, stroke cassette or CD if you want to as well. And it also looks like you could option an extra cost metallic paint for the base model, but again, doesn't seem, and we'll look at it in a moment, it doesn't seem like you can get the solid colours in the top 2 models, weirdly. And then it ends, and a nice sort of view at the rear actually of this sort of base model KA, showing you the wiper and on there, and the design cue of these big bumpers again at the rear, and these sort of lights that follow the lines round. Base model wheel trims though in this sort of bright blue colour. so we finally get to the colours themselves. This is just a radiant red on a base model, but if we go down, it kind of like shows you the colours you can get for each model. It's telling us the metallics are an extra cost on the KA, but you could get them as standard, no extra cost on the 2 and 3, which for one thing is unusual not to pay extra for a metallic, but more unusually, the solid colours look like they're only available on that base model. And my favourite colour of the KAs is this belladonna colour. I think it looks the nicest. You couldn't even get it on the higher models, which is unusual. And that looks like the trim on all the models. Okay, and like I say, one of my favourite colour charts actually is when they show a nice colour and at the actual car itself. So I think this is a particularly nice one. If we zoom in, we can have a look at them colours. And it is a bit of a shiny paper, so you might see the light of the camera on some of them. Can't do much about that, unfortunately. But the first colour up, autumn green. Don't remember ever seeing a Ford KA in autumn green. It's a metallic. I'm not sure it really suits the car. I think it's better on a larger car, darker colours personally. I think brighter colours look better on these little cars. We've got Panther Black. I do remember seeing a few black ones. Not a fan, basically because you like lose some of these little styling cues with black, I think. Mica Stone, not a fan. I'm sure some people like that, but I'm not a fan of that particular colour. Radiant Red Solid, lots of KAs in this colour because I think it really suits it. And what you'll find is the best colours for the KA are the flat colours, and they're only available on the base model. I always think that's weird. Another solid colour, bright blue, a great colour for a car like this. This Cuirass, no matter which Ford it was on, I was never a fan of. Electric Current, so if you do want a red KA, you can get this colour, but I think the flat red looks better on these little cars. My favourite, the Belladonna, only available on the base. Silver, looks okay. Not a fan. Too many silvers, I think, around today. It's kind of like put me off silver completely. And Amparo Blue, a great colour. Metallic if you want a colour, but like I say, I think the base colour looks better on these base cars. And then the back of the brochure itself, obviously here's where your Ford dealer would normally stamp it, but it'll give you an idea of the publication number and the date. If the camera will zoom in. There we go. July 1997. So there you go, the Ford KA. I must admit, I really like the design of these little KAs. Very rare today. I think there was lots of rust issues, kind of like finished them all off, unfortunately. But an interesting design. Just hated the name, really. But let me know in the comments what you think. I'm sure a lot of people's first car. And an interesting car looking back. I much prefer these than the later generations, that's for sure. But that's all for today's Ford Friday. If you enjoyed the program, please do like, and I would appreciate anyone who hasn't done, if they subscribe, that always helps the channel. But for now, we'll say enjoy your weekend. There will be a Saturday show tomorrow. But for now, we'll say take care and goodbye.